Shot Podcast. I'm Brian.
I'm Dutch Murdoch.
So I guess today we're going to be talking a little bit about what we watched this past weekend. This past Tuesday was the debut of Carnyland by the National Wrestling Alliance, and then you had the new episode of the Darkside of the Ring. I believe that might be, is that the season finale?
Season finale, correct.
So that was with Owen Hart. Right. So we're just going to go over it real quick, give our opinions on it, and see where it leads. Now with Carnyland, it reminded me a lot of like the Young Bucks being the elite, and then Matt Hardy in the elite, or his broken Matt Hardy universe. It felt like they were trying to do something completely outside of professional wrestling in some aspects. But I see everybody's getting the show, for the most part, Monday through Friday, because they're trying to give brand new content, and I understand, so people will continue to pay for it.
Well, and you don't know what may stick. You
right.
know, it's like anything else. I mean, they may do a segment and take Ziggy Dice, for example. You know, he may do a segment that just gets hot and, you know, becomes something that people want to see. And then when they do get back to doing, you know, the studio wrestling, that's maybe a segment that they can incorporate into their show somewhere along the way, or be additional content that they can continue to put up there. Who knows?
Right. And you got to really figure doing things like that is not a bad idea, because if you remember, Zack Ryder was told, go home, we don't have anything for you. He made himself popular on the internet with that True Hollywood Z story.
That's right.
So in turn, just like you just said, it's very easy to see that they could do something like that.
It was. Of course, I will say this. I mean, it's not like they hyped it up to be this greatest thing that was ever going to come at you, because obviously it's a definitely outside of the realm of wrestling, if you will, so to speak. And but you know, I felt like it was okay. I mean, I felt like that it was worth a watch.
Yeah, it was fine. It felt like more like a thing you would see on Saturday mornings back in the 80s, where it would show you all the new cartoons coming up, because it was just little segments of Eli Drake, of Nick Aldis. Now, I did watch after it This Is the NWA, I believe it's called, and it had Billy Corgan and Dave Lagana talking, and I thought that's neat. I like when, and they were just talking about, for instance, because they didn't do the Crockett Cup this year, they predicted probably lost about $500,000, just through merchandise, ticket sales, pay-per-view buys, and things of that nature. So that's a massive hit for a little small company. As Billy Corgan says, it's not backed by neither one. It's not backed by a billionaire. Right. You know, like WWE.
These guys have to be frugal with their money.
Right. And that's one thing that I truly like about the NWA. I wasn't real crazy about Carnyland. It was what it was. Sure. But you're going to have to let it play out, I guess, in the end.
Did you see AEW had their Double or Nothing pay-per-view
last night? Yep. Mm-hmm.
Mike Tyson was there to present the TNT title.
Mm-hmm.
Cody Rhodes won, and there's a picture. I guess at one point during the pay-per-view, the cameraman cut over, and Mike Tyson had the title sitting on his lap and was yawning. And so somebody has screenshot that. And of course, some of the reviews I read of it, it doesn't sound like people enjoyed. But keep in mind too, man, I didn't actually physically watch the show, so I don't have really a way to weigh in on that to say whether it was, you know, what my opinion of it was. And I realize when you get online, you know, you got a lot of trolls that are going to just talk trash about a particular product just for the sake of talking trash. But a lot of people were saying it was very boring.
Well, I think really the problem with professional wrestling, it sucks because it don't have that audience there. And you really do need an audience. When we, last year's Double or Nothing was phenomenal. That had, I think, to me, match of the year with Dustin and Cody. which blew me away. That them two would be the match of the year, and then you had Moxley show up. But then this year, I guess you had Brian Cage, former Impact Wrestling champion, and he's now there. And Taz was already there doing his interviewing, so he's going to be fighting Moxley at
Brian Cage
at All Out.
So it's interesting because one of the things in reading the comments that they did talk is obviously when Cody lost to Jericho the last time, one of the stipulations was that he wouldn't fight for the title anymore. So with him going for the TNT title, that's his way of getting gold without going and keeping it kind of true to the story, without going for the world title. While Jericho's champion, that is.
Correct. Now, one thing...
Well, Jericho's not champion now because Jon Moxley is. But Jon Moxley's also babyface. And I don't know if they want to do a babyface versus babyface right now.
Right. I like the way the NWA does with their TV title in the aspect of you defend it 7 times or you hold on to it. You can win by count out or as long as you keep the title. That is a check mark. And they only get 6 minutes and 5 seconds to wrestle. And then once they hit that number 7, if they get past it, then they get a title shot. And I really like that. And, that could have been something that Cody could have used. So say he can get one because he has that stipulation. But I don't think AEW has that type of thing in their with their belt.
Yeah.
So, but no, and look, I looked up how much it cost. It was $50. Someone asked me earlier today, Steven, and he was like, did you see AEW's Double or Nothing? And it's not that I wouldn't have watched it, but it was like, I have to be selective on what I'm going to pay $50 for.
Well, I would agree with that. I think, and this is me personally, but I think the days of me paying that kind of money for a pro wrestling pay-per-view are gone. $20-$30 that we've shelled out before to NWA, but I just don't feel they're not giving me anything on a pay-per-view that I don't see every week. You see these matches. I mean, if you watch TNA religiously, or not TNA, but AEW religiously. If you watch WWE religiously, any of them, you see what they're going to put on the pay-per-views. You're going to see these guys wrestle each other. I mean, it's they don't leave. There's no reason for me to buy it and watch it because they're going to give it to me for free on TV anyways.
Right. That's where when you watch like a MMA fight, it's a lot harder to. It's easier to say, all right, I'm going to pay $65 to watch it, just because it's usually once these two fight, that's it. You're not seeing John Jones and Daniel Cormier fight all over the UFC fight night.
They haven't already fought 10 times before they get to the main event of UFC whatever.
Right.
So that's hard for me to do. I would make the argument too. Does wrestling even need pay-per-views anymore? Because they do everything. I mean, everything can be done on TV.
You know what? If you don't have a good contract, I could probably say yeah. That would be a nice little influx. Look, the NWA said they could have made $500,000. So if we're a little small promotion, that $500,000 could have went a long ways.
Okay.
So in turn, I could see there being a need for it. I do think you need to start controlling the price, because even with the UFC, we've had plenty where we've looked at it and went, ugh, I don't know if I want to pay that.
Even on like a UFC card, they're so top heavy now with talent that they're trying to spread these guys and gals out over the course of, and there's too much UFC programming. Right. It used to be back in, mid 2000s, late 2000s, man, the cards were stacked. I mean, man, that was an easy decision to spend the money because the top three fights could have been main event fights.
But the only thing is that there's only 26 cards per a year.
Yes. Now they have so much programming
Right.
that a fight that was probably should have been about a second or third fight of the night, on the main card is now main event. And quite frankly, some of these fighters just don't have the ability to sell fights. They just don't. Now I understand that like Colby Covington and Conor McGregor and that style, and Nate Diaz, the Diaz brothers. I understand that some people don't enjoy the trash talk and don't like guys like that. But in the same token, how else are you selling fights? I appreciate when guys have mutual respect for each other, but I also like to see there be a little heat there. You know what I'm saying? I like to see these guys get fired up and get ready to fight because then that gets me excited to see them fight.
Right.
Oh,
absolutely.
But I also don't want it to be fake either. You know what I'm saying? In other words, I don't want there to be fake heat just for the sake of there being heat.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but, I enjoy hearing the backstage stuff when it comes to like Tony Khan. I like when he does almost like the media scrum after the event and the wrestlers will go back there and talk. It reminds me a lot of New Japan wrestling, the way they try to present it. The problem is sometimes them guys will go overboard on exposing, sitting around chit-chatting about how we all got together to discuss this upcoming match. Because I guess they did a stadium scramble match and they did it the day before. So on Friday, they filmed it. So it was a cinematic style match. And you want to take me out of a match, go to take fans out of there, and then you put it in a cinematic world? No, I'll because like The Undertaker versus AJ Styles, I think AJ Styles is one of the best workers out there. But I'm not going to rush to go watch a television program with Undertaker or whoever in a cinematic format. Like when they talk about Sting possibly taking on The Undertaker in a cinematic.
That's the only way they can do it now.
That's true. And it would probably come off better than if I'm having a real match. But I don't want to watch a real match between two old guys like that. They can't go. And I don't want to watch the cinematic match between the two.
Sure.
Because I know exactly what's going to happen. They want to drop Sting. And I'm glad to hear that his contract's come up. And, he was going to be on the Legends toy line. And Mattel had to stop it. And they were like, they don't have his rights. So they could still sign Sting to go to for his license for that toy or whatever. And if I was him, I'd probably just do like, hey, get this one figure out. That's fine. But I could easily see him going to TNA. He was right when he didn't go to WWE years ago. Remember TNA did it? They said, why didn't you go? He's like, when Booker T walked into the back and they went back to back with The Rock, and The Rock turned around and said, who the hell are you? He's like, that right there showed him what WWE thought of WCW. He should have been shocked. He should have knew who Booker T was.
He should have known who his rival was.
Right. And then when you have Sting finally show up, and then he gets jobbed at WrestleMania as JBL just smashes WCW into the ground, which was already dead. So it was like digging up a body and then just hacking it up. So
it's funny because Vince McMahon has gloated and celebrated so much over the fall of WCW, and yet there's a lot of indicators that WWE could be next. The business is not what it used to be. You've got competition out here now. With the rumor mill running abound that the WWE's thinking about selling. Who knows? Who knows? But I will tell you, if WWE does sell, mark my words, if they sell, I give them 5 years.
Oh yeah, because what will happen is they'll probably sell, and then they would say, well, we're going to keep Triple H and we'll keep Stephanie and so forth and so on there.
Consultants. But then what'll happen is you'll have somebody that'll pull a Hulk Hogan, and their contract won't be with WWE. Their contract will be with the parent company at WWE.
You could have that, or you could just have a suit show up and go, I don't want this programming on this station.
I don't see the value of it. I want it gone.
When Bellator, they're on the zone. And I thought to myself, if UFC was smart, don't buy them. Go over there and pay them and say, bring your fights to UFC, Fight Pass. I would be more interested in buying Fight Pass if Bellator was there. I forget Bellator even exists.
Because I do too. If it wasn't for the fact that I follow them on Instagram, I wouldn't.
Right.
I wouldn't.
But when they got picked up, and they have Scott Coker, and he, that's one of their saving graces, honestly.
Right.
And he only can do so much.
Right.
Because when they picked up, and then Spike goes, all right, we're going to change your name to Paramount. And this programming don't fit Paramount. They're on there occasionally. I think they were on there with this Fedor Rampage match.
Speaking of Fedor, have you seen any more on his retirement tour?
Well, no, because it went on because of COVID-19. I guess it's all.
Because he fought Rampage, and wasn't there supposed to be another fight?
Right,
but he hadn't announced that fight yet.
No, because he was saying I think he said he was going to retire. Like he was going to. He made an announcement like he was retiring.
Yes.
But then I think his thing was the translator. So he wants to fight again in U.S. He wants to fight like over in Russia, and that's going to be I
want to fight Japan one more time, and then
no, the Japan. That was it for Japan.
So okay.
So then he'll come to like U.S. And then he'll come over to Mother Russia and and then he'll wrap it up right there, and that's what he would. So, but it came across as if he was retiring right there on the spot, which it would have been better had he retired right there. But now look, the longer it goes, the older he gets.
Let me tell you, Fedor Emelianenko probably has to be one of the. Now I like Fedor, but boy.
Scoot in a little bit.
By the time he got to, the stateside, he was a 50-50 fight. I mean, everything that he made a name for himself back in the day over in Pride, those days were long gone behind him. And there was guys coming in there, man, taking it to him.
Oh, yeah. He got close with Brett Rogers, remember?
Oh, Brett Rogers was on the cusp of unseating him. Absolutely.
And he got lucky there. But then I remember at Verdun, eventually it was going to happen.
And then the way Bigfoot Silva just completely dominated him on the ground.
Right. And then Dan Henderson moves up to heavyweight.
Henderson goes in there.
What's he, 185er really or something?
Light heavyweight.
Yeah, best.
Middleweight sometimes. But now Dan Henderson, that was a tough guy. I mean, he's a hard hitter. But you take Matt Mitrione. If you'd have had Matt Mitrione fight Fedor Emelianenko from back in the day, that fight wouldn't have ended with Mitrione knocking him out. Fedor would have mauled him back in the day. But Fedor also would have had the chin to take it. Fedor's older now. He doesn't have the same gusto that he used to.
Right. So, all right. So the other thing that we watched online was Dark Side of the Ring.
Yes.
It was the Owen Hart tragedy. We were both watching when it happened.
One of the things I took away from that was, and I never really thought about this. I just figured it was kind of but I never thought about the fact that his family, his widow and her son, and of course the daughter wasn't on there, or at least wasn't interviewed. But they both said that as long as they're alive, Owen Hart will never go into the WWE Hall of Fame because they successfully sued WWE for wrongful death, and I really thought that it was neat how their opinion was, we're not giving the WWE this satisfaction of putting a plaque up for his name or anything like that because they're the company that caused his death.
The thing is, at no point did WWE try to kill Owen Hart. And I think that's what really bothered.
Went into it saying, "Oh, we're going to kill him."
They just put him into a dangerous situation.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It was negligence on their part, man. Because I mean, they got a second-rate rigging company to come in there, man.
Right.
And these guys didn't know what they were doing.
Because I think they said with Sting, when he used to come down, he would have 2 hooks. He actually had a safety cord in case the one broke. So no, I could see them suing that. I'm really shocked with the way this demeanor, with McMahon's demeanor. They just showed that little piece of him talking to the lawyer. Because if it would have been me and it would have been my company, you would have thought he would have been, look, we're going to do everything with you to help make sure you get satisfaction, you get closure, and we can figure out how. And then WWE might get sued, but then WWE sues that company. And that company, if they really did do something wrong, then they're going to go out of business and they're going to lose their licenses and stuff like that. But that's how it should have been done. It was really strange, the aspect of it.
So from a business standpoint, McMahon obviously, and this, McMahon has to be careful with just how much, oh, we're going to take care of you, blah, blah, blah. Because if that was the case, then anybody that ever got injured is going to drain them, because they're going to need every penny that WWE makes. That's how much they need. They're going to be like a piece of trash like John Stossel. You know what I'm saying? Now, that being said, I'm not saying that Owen's wife was wrong for suing. I think she absolutely had the right to sue. McMahon was just trying to protect his business, even as cold-blooded as that sounds. If the lawsuit hits too hard or gets him too many, he has other people who's working, who families depend on that paycheck. Now this this is a thing that we've talked about before. With after Owen fell from the roof, should they have stopped the pay-per-view? And I think they should have, because looking at it, I mean, I understand, you've got all these pay-per-view people, you've got all these people that were there live, but you just had a man lose his life in the ring. And I think that, you can justify why you needed to stop the event right there.
Right. They should have stopped the event, because I remember when we were watching it, it felt like all the air was taken out of it, which was that. But I think the one thing, for the most part, I knew most of the things that was said on that show and everything. But the one thing that really stood out to me was why they should have stopped the show. And that's what they said. And I had never even thought of it, but they said that it was now a crime scene.
It's a crime scene.
So, and then you go, oh, okay, well that makes sense, because if something was to happen, people would shut. If there was someone died in a store or what, or wherever, store. Right? They're putting up a tape, and they're not going to. And for all you know, that rigging company could have been doing stuff. Example: when Tony Stewart hit the kid on the dirt track,
right?
And everyone flipped out, and whatever happened, I don't know, but they were able to get that car put onto the trailer and moved the next day, or some. So in turn, I'm not saying that he did anything, but it gives that perception.
Anytime you have a significant accident like that, you want to preserve the scene. You want to preserve any evidence that's involved with it, because, like you just said, you start moving things, it gives people a chance to alter, it gives people a chance to tamper with. It alters everything. And, so, that's even more of a reason. And I'm surprised that McMahon and them weren't told to shut things down. I don't know. Again, I mean, I don't know legally what the ramifications for something like that are, or whatnot, or who would have the authority to come in and tell them, shut it down.
Because it wasn't like Owen jumped off the top rope, landed on his neck, and died.
Right. It wasn't like it was a botched wrestling move that caused
that
him
one,
to die.
I could have seen him being able to continue the show. But the one with him actually having an accident from the equipment, in that aspect, I was really...
Sure. I don't know. It just... but again, that's us Monday morning quarterbacking it. We're not the ones sitting back there saying, damn, we got a live audience, and we've got people at home on TV watching. Do we keep going or do we pull the plug? And they should have pulled the plug.
Right.
They absolutely that would have been the right thing to do, was pull the plug. I also found it interesting that the Hart family tried to sabotage his wife's suit. That she actually had members of that family actively working against her in the lawsuit. I thought that was interesting as well too. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just because maybe I forgot, but aside from her and his son, none of the other Harts were interviewed.
No. And
None of the other Harts were interviewed for this.
No.
And I don't know if Dark Side of the Ring had reached out to them and asked for an interview, and they declined. I don't know. I find that interesting as well too.
I would imagine they would have had to have asked. You would have thought. So if I'm a Batman, they probably asked and they declined.
Probably.
But
it was.
I do find it. The family working to sabotage your brother's widow.
Yeah, she said that there were some that were very outspoken to her about it, and then there were some that just kept their mouths shut. But the belief was that there was going to be, which now this is interesting. Stay with me here on this. That might lend some credibility to the conspiracy theory that it was a work with Bret Hart, because if it wasn't a work and Bret felt genuinely as strongly as he supposedly did about WWE and their theory or them screwing him in Montreal, why would Bret not have been on board with suing him? Because he would have felt legitimately slighted by him. Mm-hmm. And he indicated he had no desire to ever go back to WWE. You know, he came out, they're getting ready to do a Bret Hart video. And how many years passed before he mended fences? You see what I'm saying? So why would Bret not have been on board with suing WWE's pants off?
Well, from what I read, she said that he wanted Bret to add in the lawsuit. She gets all of Bret Hart's videos. Why, I don't know, but that's how when they were suing.
That way Bret can control videos. He can make money off of
that. Get his video library. And
right,
which would have made no sense, because if I was on a jury and I would have gave her probably a lot. I could easily see possibly.
She got $18 million.
Right, so I could see giving. But if she was like, "Hey, I need Bret Hart's video library," I would say no. Now
I don't know how you argue though that would become your property, because that is property of WWE. That's a product they produced.
Right.
Now, I could see as part of the settlement, they're going to reach a financial settlement, and they may somehow be able to twist it into, any future sales of Hart family DVD or whatever. The family of Owen Hart would get X amount of proceeds from. But at the end of the day, that's still WWE product.
I would see her having more legal control from Owen's side than Bret's side.
Yeah.
So if she's not suing for Owen's matches, it makes no sense to me. But they said when that got thrown out or whatever, that's when Bret went and mended fences with Vince. And then he shows back up, and now she's upset at Bret because, here he was saying, "Hey, I'm never going back. These guys screwed me," and now he's back there working, doing their videos and all that stuff. But in the end of the day, Bret Hart is
Bret's protecting his legacy.
Bret is a mark for himself, as Scott Hall says. Scott Hall said he went to his house. Scott was like, "I have a house. I don't have no pictures of myself. Well, besides just typical pictures." And he was just like, every room he went into, Bret Hart had a picture of himself in wrestling gear. So he was like, Bret's a mark for himself. And in turn, Bret's going to be more important.
I would say let's put that in context, though, because what you're basically talking about is.
And I'm saying what Scott Hall says.
I know, but Scott Hall's a bit of an extreme character here. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, for him to have no pictures of himself or any memorabilia from his wrestling days, that makes me ask, why? Why would you not have pictures from matches. I mean, all right, I concede maybe having it in every fucking room of the house would be a bit much. Okay, I get that. But why would you not have memorabilia or pictures of yourself in some way, shape, or form throughout your house? I always find that strange when I visit somebody's house and there's no pictures of family or anything. Now, I can appreciate, too, you know, like it'd be weird if I came here to your house and I come into your office, and there's a picture of you, just you, hanging on your wall. That's kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? But you know, again, I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't want to sit here and say that that's, you know, that Brett. Yes, I do believe Brett took his character a little bit more seriously, but I think that can be said for a lot of those guys.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, I think a lot of those guys. I mean, you live that character for so many days out of the year, and you get in that mindset for so long that, yeah. And I mean, really, if it was just, you know, Scott Hall obviously didn't care about his career, because anytime they said, "Hey, we're going to have you being pinned clean by let's see, just anybody, pick a name off the roster," you know, if they'd have said, "Hey, Scott, we're going to have you look at the lights with Renegade," he'd have been like, "Okay," because he's the guy that says, "I don't care what they have me do, because it all pays the same." The only reason, though, and that argument doesn't really fly that much, I mean, because it's like, I understand it's a predetermined outcome. But he would have never been the bad guy. He would have never been Scott Hall if he wouldn't have been Razor Ramon and had a winning streak. Mm-hmm. And you know what I'm saying? Because nobody got into the Mulkeys because the Mulkeys were hot on the mic or had a cool look or anything like that. I understand Crockett and them, you know, had that one little piece where they had that one moment in time on TBS where they got over. But the rest of the time, the Mulkeys were jobbers. How many jobbers went out there, man? You know, we used to talk about this. How many jobbers went out there, and them cats would be all ripped up, and I mean, just, you know, and then here comes Jimmy Valiant, and he's got a dad bod, and he's hopping in the ring, and he's whipping the shit out of a guy that looks like he's been carved out of granite and steel. And, but nobody remembers that cat that was carved out of granite and steel. You know, hell, he was fine to take and look at the lights for it all. You know, but now if that old boy would have started getting a win streak behind him, people would start talking about him.
Right.
Know? So, I mean, Scott Hall just obviously doesn't. I mean, I appreciate he's got kind of a more casual approach to things. But, and he doesn't take it so seriously. Some of them guys really do care about their win-loss record.
I think that's really more what the difference between Scott Hall and Bret Hart is. He don't care if he's looking at because he got paid money, big money. Yeah. And then for him to be, and he didn't just job every night. He did, like, there was a cool factor about him.
You'd be hard pressed to find You'd be hard pressed to find a WCW singles match that Scott Hall wasn't fucking looking at the lights at the end of his match. The only time I think that man was winning in WCW is when he was involved in a tag team match or something.
Yeah, right. But yeah, for the most part. But but I think that's the difference. And in turn, I think it was weird that Bret's so crazy about himself like it.
Yeah.
I would have. I mean, really, was it a shock when they were going to do, or why Bret? Why? And they were going to trash Bret Hart like a trashy Ultimate Warrior.
And that brings up even more. Why would the WWE think, you know what? Here's a guy. Let's talk about the Ultimate Warriors DVD there for a second. Here's a guy that we pushed. He pinned Hulk Hogan clean. We made toys, T-shirts, memorabilia, all sorts of stuff out of him. He was our top guy for a while. And yeah, he did all the snorts and the stupid interviews and stuff like that, you know, where he made no sense with what he was talking about. But you hung your hat on that. You said that's our guy. That's the guy we're gonna move forward with as a company. Now you have, you know, some bad business deals, because now, you know, you talk about somebody taking themselves seriously. Ultimate Warrior took himself very seriously, but it also translated later on in life for him, because he went into motivational speaking, and, you know, he really started kind of inspiring people there towards the end. And then, of course, you know, he gave a Dynamite farewell speech. I mean, that's ultimately what he was afforded, because, I mean, damn, talk about the timing of it.
Right.
But for the WWE to make a video then and say, oh, boy, what an idiot. You know, he ran out there so fast, and he was already gassed when he first get to the ring, and blah, blah, blah. Well, who's the dumbass in this scenario? Is it him? Or is it you saying, yeah, I want to make you my number one guy.
Right.
I mean, what industry in itself would say, let's make a video about a wrestler and just trash him?
Right.
And the same thing with Bret Hart. If they would have went around and did why Bret why, I mean, obviously they're going to focus it on the fact of, and McMahon brings up a very valid point, regardless of, that was his title, and Bret Hart, regardless of who McMahon wanted him to drop it to, should have dropped the title to, and he should have dropped it right there in Montreal. Should have been a clean victory, or even if it was a botched victory, whatever. Bret should have done the job like everybody else has done.
He should have. That's no question. I guess what really bothers me about like documentaries from WWE is I like a documentary where like say your faults. Like McMahon would not say anything negative that the WWE should have done. What he should say is, and if he did the Why Bret Why DVD, is like, Bret, we were going to have Bret wrestle Shawn Michaels for the belt, lose the belt in Montreal. Bret didn't want to do it. We could have went he won't say like they wrestled Ken Shamrock 3 days earlier. He could have lost the belt. Look, you had a no-holds-barred match with Shawn Michaels and do something like that. You could have took that belt off of him if you were really that concerned about him taking the belt to WCW. And then, like, as Jim Cornette said, Bret Hart always marched around to keep everything was real. And the first thing he did was when he got screwed, he immediately goes to the newspaper to tell everybody how fake it was, how he didn't get screwed. And so Jim Cornette said, all these other victories were real, but this one time I lost was that wasn't real. So in turn, Bret came off looking stupid there. But there was a whole thing. But that's the problem I have with their DVDs or their documentaries is I like the real stuff. Like when you talking about WrestleMania, for instance. This was that one shot McMahon had, and if it fails, they're bankrupt. He's back to being a little tiny promoter, and it's all over. If it hits, it's where it is today.
Right.
And of course, that's an interesting story to me. Not hearing me nothing but the good stuff. It's like watching looking at an Instagram feed, and you're seeing these folks that are in top fit shape, living in beautiful houses, having great expensive cars, all that stuff. That's false. You didn't see them having to go to the gym at 4:00 in the morning, not eating anything except certain diet.
Right.
Right. That's more interesting to me than seeing the finale. I mean, the finale, like, hey, where it is, that's great. That's a neat thing. But, Bret's a strange guy. I mean. Well,
I think going back, bringing it back around to the to tying this into the dark side of the ring there with why the Hart family was against her suing WWE is because there was a genuine belief by most of them in the family, and maybe not even just the Harts. I mean, Jim Neidhart, British Bulldog. And, keep in mind, too, some of these guys that may not have necessarily been, like, say, for example, like Neidhart or Bulldog, they've got kids that are coming up. Now Neidhart's daughter wrestles for WWE. Bulldogs, is his son ever in Major League Wrestling?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he could potentially find his way to WWE.
He was in WWE.
Oh, okay.
Remember, they were the new foundation with Natty, and it was Tyson Kidd.
That's right. He did come in with.
So, but it's very easy that he could go back.
Right.
So the last thing you want to do, like that's what Teddy Hart. He said one thing at Bret holding the grudge against the WWE so long that it hurt some of the other Hart kids because they're like, to get back at Bret in some aspects, they're not going to hurt any of the nieces and nephews.
Right. He's hurt other people's.
Right.
Now,
for them not to come out and like, hey, we quit, we're out the door. I'm in agreement. If they're trying to mess with her case, I would never.
But I guess what you just said is why the Harts were against it because WWE's going to remember that Owens wife sued the pants off of them. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And
But if the other Harts just, instead of trying to take the paperwork or however screw it,
but you know,
just
for
keep
what
their
it-
mouth
for what
shut.
it's worth, I mean, they've made good. She's a doctor now. The son's a lawyer. You know, so I mean, and they've got that foundation
Right. The
set up.
daughter's the journalist, so
Yeah. So
yeah, they're doing well.
yeah.
But you know, it's interesting. I can't remember where it was. I saw it. Maybe it was Reddit. But someone had talked about. They said if you watch that and the way Martha and the kids talk about WWE, and then you watch the way Benoit's boy talks about the WWE. You know, he wants to be there.
He wants to be there. They don't.
They don't. And he's wanting to restore the Benoit name. Good
Yes.
luck on that. But,
I feel bad for him.
oh, that was a
I
tragedy.
feel really, really bad for him.
That was a
absolutely because
tragedy.
he's as much of a victim to what happened with that as was Nancy Benoit and the other son.
Oh, yeah.
He's as much of a victim, if not more, because now he has to live with the fallout
Right.
of that, and that's awful.
And see, the bad thing, too, is since Benoit is his last name,
Right.
you know, people will put, they'll
They'll-
and then he also
the-
looks like Chris a little bit.
The sins of the father.
Right.
Absolutely.
He's got to hold it up.
Right.
So.
Right.
But no, the overall this season of Dark Side of the Ring, I thought was a decent thing. I mean, there was
really good.
a lot of them I've known about.
Well,
Now-
I really enjoyed the Fabulous Moolah one. I didn't realize what a fucking gangster she was.
Right.
You know, I mean, boy, she had the racket on female wrestling.
But I think that's how it was. It seemed like one of the
There
best.
was no female wrestlers that didn't go through Moolah.
Well, they had all of their stables. So you had Moolah's girls, and then you had another lady's girl. Lipstick and Dynamite is a phenomenal documentary. It was on Netflix. I don't know if it's still there. I'd highly recommend it just because it was so interesting because they talked about how like the one guy and the lady who ran the girls, they would want to make the ladies turn lesbian so they wouldn't fall in love with guys in the towns, and that way they would be hooking up on they'll be going along with their girlfriends and not worrying about getting, hey, I'm going to go back to
Start a family with Joe Blow.
right back in Alabama or whatever.
Yeah.
That was an interest, but no, the Moolah stuff, but I think the way Eddie was death, the toll on Chris Benoit,
Right.
during, of course, you never heard it being. Now I've heard that he had it was hard on him,
Sure.
but as hard as it was seemed.
Well, right, and it looked like that was really the start of the end for Benoit. You know, he never was the same guy after that.
Right. So here's this guy who's probably a real introvert, and then he finds someone that's his pressure valve, if you will. He can talk to. Mm-hmm. He's gone now. You don't have no one to talk to.
Right.
So, but overall, the season was good.
Very good. Yeah.
They do an excellent job. Like I said, I would like to see something like a light side of the ring, just so you can see some positive things. It's sad to me that
I will say this. I will say for David Schultz, what's interesting about that is he was successful with bounty hunting after his pro wrestling, and he essentially was kind of dog before there was dog. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Obviously, there was no TV for him, but he talked about how these guys already kind of knew him, and he had rapport with some of these guys because they recognized him. His celebrity status from in the ring translated when he got into that. So I mean, it's I guess it's making lemonade out of lemons. His pro wrestling career ended, but he found another venue that he was able to be very successful with.
Yeah.
And we could talk at length about that and protecting the business and what he did that night, and then about how Hogan just kind of washed his hands of him. Of course, Hogan it was a political move. Hogan's not going to align with David Schultz. He's going to stay right there with Vince McMahon because he's on the cusp of getting ready to go for WrestleMania.
But I think you said it right best. Why was John Stossel allowed back there?
Right.
If you knew he was coming back there to do something like that, why would you allow him to come back?
That's right.
And that's something that and it makes, once again.
So you're right.
It makes McMahon look. I mean, this season has made McMahon look dirty. It begs
the question: as a wrestling organization, or any organization, if you got a reporter coming in, I'd kind of like an idea of what you want to talk about. What do you want to ask me?
Right.
I understand they can still throw a gotcha question out there, okay, and that can be addressed, but you want to know the nature of what it is. And
right.
Maybe they did. Maybe Stossel said, "Well, it's just a little puff piece, blah blah blah, for 2020." And he knew that once he got a mic in front of somebody's face, he was going to ask "Is this fake?" question. Knowing good and well it was. That other guy had already given John Stossel everything he needed.
Right.
He knew it. He just wanted to embarrass a name. Is what it was.
But just sitting here, McMahon came off bad in 3 of these episodes.
Right.
Jimmy Snuka, he was.
Protected a murderer.
Looked like he protected Jimmy Snuka.
Right.
Then with David Schultz, he sends David Schultz out there, and then he plays like stupid.
They didn't know what he did.
And then,
what are you doing that for?
Then you have the video of him during the deposition with Owen Hart's death.
Right.
So three of the videos makes McMahon come off not even just like, man, he's probably a bad guy, and I wouldn't want to hang out with him. He comes off really, really, really bad.
Well, that's true, but I would. The business in which he runs isn't like your typical corporate business. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of moving parts, if you will. And I mean, again, at the end of the day, he should never protected Snuka. He should let Snuka ride the lightning. If Snuka murdered that poor woman, Snuka should have went to jail for it. Yeah, absolutely. The deposition with Owen Hart's death, I mean, again, it's cold-blooded, but that's McMahon just trying to protect his business.
No, I understand what he's doing, but at the same time, I think you can still come off looking more compassionate.
And Stossel, look, at the end of the day, McMahon, that was an off-the-record kind of thing. McMahon sent Stossel, or sent old Schultz out there to shake him up, but I think Schultz did a little bit more shaking than what McMahon maybe had bargained for. But he still could have stood behind him.
Yeah, but because
he should have said, "Why are you asking my guy something like that?"
Like 2 years later, he's going to New Jersey to say exactly what Stossel would want to have answered, so you don't have to pay the taxes.
Right.
It's just, I don't know. It was some strange. But like I said, three episodes makes McMahon look really bad. I understand it's a weird world in professional wrestling, but yeah.
Now, let me say this too. There are absolutely promoters out there that had that been them that John Stossel showed up for. Hell, if old Cowboy Bill Watts, I don't know that Stossel, if it wouldn't have been Cowboy Bill Watts, twisted him into a pretzel.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, you had other guys out here, promoters out here, man. Fritz Von Erich would have never allowed that.
Right.
I'm not saying that them guys would have necessarily ended, but I know that they would have treated it different than McMahon.
Well, I don't know if you ever remember that one episode that I think I sent it to you years ago, but it was AWA. Vern Gagne was teaching some Russian, I think, how to be a pro wrestler. So the news report was like the local station was like recording it, and you see them in the ring doing the drops and the bumps and all that stuff. But at no point, they did it really professional, like it was a real sport. And unless Stossel pretended to, like, hey, we're going to do it like it's a real sport, who knows? But if I was a bet man, Stossel...
Stossel come in there for a gotcha moment.
Oh, he did. But what a crazy one to ask, like, that question, too.
Well, and here's the other thing, too. Stossel even admits in the video that he was intimidated by David Schultz when Schultz walked up to him.
Right.
He said, I almost didn't ask the question. Well, and then, of course, what a piece of trash Stossel was when he said, yeah, you're right, the pain did go away after I got paid.
Yeah.
Piece of trash.
I guess in the end of the day, David Schultz shouldn't have hit him. I don't know. But, you know, that's the thing is, in today's world, like I remember when I was on the boat in the Navy, this is how it is. This is a tradition. No, it's not. Some things need to die, you know. Now, at the same time, so in turn, like, yeah, you can sit there and say, if you do whatever that was tradition and you get in trouble, go on and try to sell it when you're in captain's mast, you know. And then everyone's, like, looking away.
Oh,
like,
right,
you know,
right,
so in turn, that's when I really got, like, I remember I went, okay, maybe some of this tradition stuff that I used to really like, you know, you want to have integrity and stuff like that.
I think there's absolutely tradition you need to uphold.
You want to uphold.
And that's good.
And then there's some that needs to die.
But there's some parts that are labeled tradition that need to die.
Like they would have when you would get pinned, the dolphins, then people would start punching you. No, it wasn't just one time. It was like the entire day. And then they'd be breaking your dolphins or, you know, puncturing your skin several times. And it's like, that's not good. You can go on and get rid of that one.
Yeah.
I get it. Folks went through it, and they didn't die, but still, I think, you know, some people take it to the extreme. All right, so we're at 51-minute mark.
All right, well.
Is there anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right, so until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Iron Dutch Murdoch.
And we will see you later. Thanks for listening to the Potato Shop Podcast. You can listen to us on Podbean, SoundCloud, Spotify, and other places you hear your podcast. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Potato Shop PC. Our YouTube channel is Potato Shop. Click the subscribe button and the notification bell. Whenever a video is uploaded, you'll know about it. So until next time, my friends, goodbye.